Before you start playing rhythm guitar, the very first thing that you have to pay attention is to how you hold the pick. Now, what you need to do is take the pick in your left hand like this, okay? Then you go ahead, put your thumb behind the pick and get your index finger over. Now, you're holding it with just your thumb and index finger, and if you look at my hand, there's a gap in between that index finger and thumb. Sometimes I see guitar players kind of closing that gap, but if you do that, like you kind of tense up all the muscles in your hand, so you don't want to be doing that. So a little bit of gap is good. Okay, so that's how you hold your pick. Now these picks come in all sorts of different thickness. Now I would suggest that if you are a beginner, kind of stick to picks that are thinner, especially when you're playing rhythm guitar. If you get a thicker pick, the reason why people use a thicker pick is because it gets better sound, okay? But what you need to remember as a beginner playing rhythm, sometimes it's better to start with a thin pick, okay? The thin pick will not have resistance against the strings, and you can kind of go through the strings easily, okay? So the other thing is, point number 3, is the angle of your pick. So if you keep a straight pick and try to go through the strings, it will face resistance against the strings. So it's needless to say that your pick should be at an angle to the guitar strings, okay? So when it's going down, it's kind of pointing upwards, and when you're coming up, it's kind of pointing downwards. This also accomplishes another goal, that when the string is played, it's played by the string being pushed towards the guitar and not away from the guitar. If the string is pulled away from the guitar, it has a very nasty sound. But if you want a clean tone, pushing the string towards the guitar is the ideal thing to do. So if you angle your pick when going down, pointing upwards, and when coming up, pointing downwards, it passes through the strings without kind of rattling them. Okay, so that's point number 3 for you. Okay. Point number 4 is the movement. So many people, when they play the guitar, they're kind of moving from the elbow. Okay? You can't see my elbow, but if I move from the elbow, you'll see a big movement of the hand. You don't want to move from your elbow that much. What you want to do is move from the wrist. So when you move from the wrist, it also helps you create that angle that we were talking about. So move from the wrist. It's not that the elbow is going to not move. The elbow will move just a little bit. So majority of the movement is from the wrist, with a little bit coming from the elbow. And when you use multiple joints, that movement is most of the time going to be safe, and it won't cause any pain in that particular joint. So if I stop moving my elbow and only try to move my wrist might experience some pain or discomfort. But if I use both the joints together, I will be able to avoid that. Okay, so that's point number 4. Okay, point number 5. Now when you start actually playing your chords, you don't want to play all the strings. So it's a myth that you need to play all the strings when you play a chord. Okay? Because a chord is just 3 notes. So even if you play any 3 strings, you're still playing the chord, right? So this also makes sure that you don't have to make a big movement. Okay, small movement. Okay, so that's my 5 pointers for